Kenya's economy has been growing steadily over the last few years, so much so that US-based media house Bloomberg has rated the nation as the 7th best country for investors and the 2nd in Africa for retail investors. In this year's budget, National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich projected that the economy would grow at 6% this year, but an obstacle to this exists in the form of our national debt. It stands at 2.9 trillion shillings. Of this, 1.5 trillion shillings is foreign debt and 1.39 trillion shillings is from the domestic market. Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya Chairman Fernandes Barasa reckons that these levels are still sustainable, but only if the government uses borrowed funds in development-based expenditure and not to finance recurrent expenditure that is well over recommended levels.
And looking at the performance for last year, definitely the absorption capacity was not very good because we are doing 45% on development expenditure and of course 80% on recurrent. And for us to achieve our ambitious economic growth, definitely we need to focus on having more money absorbed on development expenditure.
This year's budget also addressed intentions of widening the tax net to include the informal sector that constitutes 85% of Kenya's workforce. ICPAK wants KRA to have informal workers get PIN numbers. That is the first step in bringing them into the tax bracket.
We are challenging KRA to come up with ways of how they can bring informal sector on board. And that maybe goes by encouraging members of the informal sector so that they can apply for the PIN numbers, because without a PIN, it becomes very impossible for you to be taxed. And there are many ways, of course, KRA can do it. I know right now they're putting various focus on iTax. That one will address the formal sector. But they can dedicate a department just to make sure that they bring more tax payers on board by focusing on how to bring the informal sector by encouraging them to apply for the PIN numbers.
ICPAK wants the government to reduce the national current account deficit below 9% and grow exports past the 7% projections set by the National Treasury.